if you are like me and you've done some editing and you've done some messing around with Adobe Premiere and maybe some After Effects, you might have gotten around to filming some stuff that doesn't look quite so pretty, because let's face it, a lot of my stuff that I've shot is not so pretty. But one thing we can do to help it is color correction. So let's pull out some of these shots from our B-roll. So we have this shot. It's pretty basic again. But this one, just put in a bit. And most of these are just boring. Hey, look at that. Let's do this one, which actually has me in it right there, randomly pointing at stuff. There, let's start there where I'm not there. Let's go into our color tab stuff. So we have our effects controls, we have our project window, we have our sequence window, we have our tools, we have some effects, and then we have our program. But instead of having just effects, we have the Lumetri color stuff, which is basic color, creative, curves, color wheels, HSL secondary, and vignette. So vignettes are kind of basic. You probably know what a vignette is. It's either this or that. Really, it's kind of fun because you can make them into being like a dreamscape or a nightmarescape. Let's leave it on just really dark. You can change it like this. This looks like kind of like an old photograph. But we can make the feather. Just mess around with that. One thing we want to do is we want to turn our effects controls over to the Lumetri Scopes, which look like these. So right now I have my parade and my waveform. So take off my parade. This is my waveform. It is in color. You can change this to be black and white or in color. This is a vectorscope HLS, and then we also have an vectorscope YUV, which looks like this. Let's turn off this. I don't use these two very much just because they don't really help me. I know some people who do, and when you're watching tutorials on how to do some color correction, you might find these and they might go, look at this, how this is in this corner, and it never makes sense to me, so I don't usually use it. There's also the histogram, which is on almost every camera you will ever use. You can find your histograms. I found histograms way easier to use in Photoshop actually, so I don't usually use them in here. Usually I use my parade, which is this guy, or girl, or whatever it is, and my waveform. And I usually switch these around. So I like having my waveform on this side and then my parade on this side, and it just makes me happy. It also, in case you were wondering, everything on your screen is done in RGB. RGB is red, green, and blue. And together on a computer screen or TV screen, they create white, and they create pure white. So when all of these are aligned, it creates a pure, true white. In CMYK, which is a print format, it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. All of those combine to create a true black, which is called a 4-color process. I bet you didn't know you were going to learn stuff about print today. But yes, so color correction uses RGB, and then we have some like CMYK stuff in here. But to create a true white, we want these to be aligned. So we're going to go into our basic correction, and we're just going to pull up the blue. And then we're going to turn down the green. So these are all straight. And so now the white in this wall is actually white. And we can turn this on and off and see what we did. Oh yeah! There's actually an easier way of doing this, but this is usually how I do it anyway. And that is Let's actually grab the same shot and just do it. Nope. Come on. This is why I don't like having my snap on. I've been having my snap on more than I used to, but I still am not happy with it all the time. That's my personal preference though, and you do not have to share it. If you like your snap on, use it. Anyway, so we corrected this shot using just these two panels, but there's a little bit easier way of doing this, and that is using this white balance selector. You just have this little eyedropper show up. You can click on anything that is true white, and these walls are supposedly true white. And we have just done the same amount of work in half the time. So it's important to know the difference between using just the white balance selector and then using just the temperature and tint. Because sometimes you're not going to have a giant white wall to be able to just grab this white balance selector off of. Anyway, to continue on, let's delete this and move these back in. So the next thing we can do is we can mess with exposure, which moves it up and down. And then we can mess with contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, blacks, and HDR spectacular if it's working, which it doesn't appear to be. You can also reset it and then do auto. Let's do auto on this one quick. See what it does. Ooh. So what it does is it went and it didn't really correct the color on it, but it exposed it a bit more. It went negatives into the shadows, added some whites, and then added some blacks, which I actually didn't like that much. So let's reset it. Do audio again. So yeah, it just ups the contrast, but I feel like it overexposes this wall and this table, which I don't like. So let's go back here and quickly I'm going to reset this. When you click reset, it does not reset the temperature and tint, by the way. And we're just going to up the exposure a little. Move the contrast up, highlights down, shadows true, and blacks. And I want my whites still there. This just creates a really different look. I just really wanted this to be really metallic. So now we have one done. Let's do this one. So this one, let's reset that again. And my green's a little high, so we're going to move that down. Just get these little peaks to all hit the right point. Let's move our exposure up a bit, not so that we wash this out and overexpose it, but just a tiny bit. And then let's move some of these shadows down. So, no. I don't think it's very different, but I feel like it's different enough where I'm happy with it and not mad at anything either. Let's mess with this one. So this one is a bit different. We also have every color blown out, so we can't really tell which one is needing to be fixed. I usually tend to up everything to blue, and Jessica hates it. We could white balance select this wall here, which does a bit, which actually is pretty nice. It takes out some of the green. If you notice, this wall is kind of green. Everything's green, and then it ups the pink in my friend's cheeks as she's doing her homework. She's gonna kill me for this. I did ask her permission though, so don't worry. Let's talk about using creatives and curves. So creative is kind of fun. You can change the intensity of everything you've done. You can make it faded. So if you're doing something that's supposed to like old school, You can sharpen it, which you might notice in like right in here in the windowsill here. We've like completely blurred it out here, but we can like sharpen it up really much, and we can really see it in like the detail work more than anything else. We can change the vibrancy. Whoa. We can change the saturation. The other thing we can do is we have this little panel here with arrows. So let's click through these. And so clicking through these, you can see we have some presets here for color correction and color grading. Color grading and color correction are very different things. This has been color corrected, while this is color grading. Can you see the difference? I'm sorry, I'm snarky. I've done a lot of these tutorials in one day. But yeah, it does create different feelings depending on what you're making and what you want it to look like and what you're trying to do. I tend to not use these types of presets very much. If I can do it myself, I tend to. Ooh, that's fun. So, I guess the thing is just playing around with these. Sometimes it's like you want to do like this noir look, but you don't want to have to go through every shot to make it black and white. Just add this preset onto it. Great. Call it a day. Let's go back to none. Curves. If you've done anything in Photoshop, you probably have seen curves. Curves control the white, the red, the green, and the blue. And you can just click on these and you can bend them to your will. I always find that with curves, the slightest thing usually does the most. So we can just move it up. That just exposes the white a bit more. But say we had like this and it was like earlier it was really green, remember? We could just grab the green and pull it really down, and now it's really pink. But yeah. And we could play this, which, hey, I want it to be really hot. It is not listening to me. Stay. Okay. We can play this.
You have to add childs properly because you had a can and not.
Ah. Talking about Adobe Flash while talking about this, that's confusing. But yeah, so this, it holds to the whole thing, which is quite nice. And we can do this with other things too. We have another point there. That's what's going on. And we can also move the points like this, so we have some things hitting really low and really dark. You can do some really crazy things with curves, which is so much fun, but it's also sometimes a nightmare. You can also do stuff with your color wheels. You can change the midtones, your shadows, and your highlights. This is similar to like doing the burn effect in Adobe Photoshop, in that you can control which one you're controlling. So if we change the shadows to all be like blue, it's fighting against me. And then we change the midtones to be red. Come on, move up, please. And then we can move our highlights to be green. It's moving really slowly and I don't know why. Thank you. And then we can see we can change this look completely from its original form. Can do some cool stuff with here with keying out colors. And that's basically it for color correction.